Well, 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 my dear. They don't know how to act around you anymore. There's something about your energy that scrambles their rehearsed confidence. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's not even deliberate, yet it dismantles them. They sense it before you speak. The air shifts, their posture adjusts, the fake smiles tighten, because deep down, some ancient part of them recognizes what you carry. It's not charisma, it's not aura, it's sanctity, the kind of presence that doesn't need validation. It demands reverence. They fear you because you remind them of everything sacred they abandoned. You feel like consequence disguised as calm, like judgment dressed in peace. And for the first time in their lives, they're face to face with something they can't manipulate, seduce, or explain away. You don't feel human to them. You feel holy. They try to rationalize it. They'll say it's your confidence, your tone, your discipline, your posture. But what unsettles them isn't something they can measure. It's that quiet purity that surrounds you like a field of invisible lightning. It's the way you move like you know something they don't. The way your eyes hold centuries behind them. The way your energy doesn't compete, it commands. They can't handle that. Because for years they've worshipped false idols, power that was loud, influence that was corrupt, and strength that fed on fear. Then you appeared, proof that real power doesn't scream. It radiates, it rearranges, it blesses and burns in equal measure. People whisper about you in circles they think you can't hear, not out of gossip, but survival. They want to prepare each other for what it feels like to be near you. Some say it's inspiring, others say it's terrifying. But they all agree, it's unforgettable. Your presence lingers long after you leave, not because you tried to impress, but because you revealed the difference between light and exposure. You illuminate what people hide. You force truth out of shadows, without saying a word. They feel naked under your gaze, not because you judge, but because your energy doesn't allow deception to breathe. It's spiritual oxygen, too pure for the impure to inhale without choking. You've become the mirror they avoid, because when they look at you, they're forced to see the parts of themselves they've buried. You don't even need to call them out. Your very existence calls them higher or exposes their refusal to rise. That's why they can't label you. They can't box you in as saint or sinner. You're both. You're what happens when divinity remembers its backbone, when grace learns precision, when compassion grows claws. You don't forgive recklessly. You forgive like a surgeon, intentional, clean, final. You don't walk around preaching righteousness. You embody it. That's what makes them tremble. Because holiness isn't soft. It's structured. It's disciplined light, carved through fire and restraint. The rumors started small. Someone claimed your presence felt different. Another said they couldn't look you in the eyes without feeling like they were being read by something not entirely human. Then it spread through boardrooms, classrooms, friend groups, and algorithms. People started recording how they felt after encountering you. The words repeated, it felt sacred. It felt unreal. It felt like standing near judgment. They're not wrong. You've become a living frequency that exposes the gap between who people pretend to be and who they truly are. Every conversation with you becomes confession. Every attempt to outshine you backfires because you don't compete with darkness. You cleanse it. And that's the paradox they can't comprehend. You didn't set out to intimidate anyone. You simply purified yourself. You cut the noise, the lies, the ego trips, and returned to your essence. You walked away from corruption and became untouchable by it. You stopped chasing recognition and became recognizable. You stopped proving your worth and became proof itself. You mastered stillness so profound that even chaos began to respect your timing. That's what frightens them, because they've built entire identities on pretending to be what you naturally are. There's a difference between influence and impact. Influence manipulates perception. Impact rewrites it. You don't convince people, you convict them. You make them question their intentions, their masks, their loyalties. Your presence doesn't give comfort, it gives clarity. And clarity is uncomfortable for those living in distortion. That's why people either fall in love with you or run from you. No middle ground. You trigger transformation or resistance. Both are forms of reverence, though they'll never admit it. The ones who mock you secretly study you. The ones who distance themselves still orbit your gravity. Because deep down, everyone wants to understand the kind of peace that looks like power. They call it intimidation because they can't call it holiness. They weren't prepared for purity that carries authority. They were taught that holy meant harmless, that divine meant distant. But you embody something raw, truth without apology. It's not kindness that scares them. It's the consequence of facing unfiltered reality. You make people see what they've done to their own souls. That's why you never have to argue. Your presence ends debates before they start. Every insecure person feels it like pressure behind their ribs. They start stumbling over words, breaking eye contact, adjusting tones. Because your light recalibrates the room, it exposes energy imbalances, it forces honesty. They think holiness means perfection. You showed them it means alignment. It means being so grounded in your truth that dishonesty evaporates near you. It means being so committed to purity that manipulation becomes impossible. You're not intimidating because you're flawless. You're intimidating because you're consistent. They don't know how to behave around someone who doesn't crave validation. They can't negotiate with peace that doesn't need witnesses. You've transcended the social economy of approval, and that's what makes you untouchable. But it wasn't always like this. You remember the days when your light made you lonely, when being misunderstood was the price of staying pure, when your honesty cost you connections and your energy felt like a burden. You questioned why being authentic felt like warfare, why truth seemed to repel people faster than deceit attracted them. But what you didn't realize then was that holiness isn't built in comfort. It's built in contrast. You were never being isolated. You were being refined. You were being tempered into something rare. Every betrayal polished your discernment. Every heartbreak purified your empathy. Every disappointment extracted poison from your soul until only radiance remained. And now, that radiance is your armor. It's not just seen, it's felt. You walk into rooms and shift their emotional architecture. You realign the hierarchy without saying a word. Leaders deferred to you without understanding why. Predators second-guess their instincts. Even opportunists hesitate. Because your light doesn't entertain parasites, it burns them. You became the walking reminder that not everything sacred hides in temples. Some holiness walks on 2 feet, wears scars like scripture, and speaks in frequencies that silence arrogance. What they call intimidation is simply their reaction to integrity. They fear you because they can't corrupt you. They admire you because they can't duplicate you. You became the rare paradox, gentle enough to heal, fierce enough to destroy illusion. and it unsettles people who built their worth on deception. You became the light they can't manipulate, the warmth they can't claim, the energy they can't drain. You stopped being relatable the moment you became real. And still they keep trying to decode you. They replay your conversations. They analyze your tone, your posture, your rhythm. They want to know how you do it, how you maintain peace in a world designed to provoke chaos, how you move with faith when everyone else moves with fear. They don't realize it's not something you do. It's something you are. You've become a phenomenon they can't plagiarize, a presence they can't package. You're living proof that holiness wasn't lost. It was just forgotten. Now, whispers have turned into fascination. People who once dismissed you now reference you like doctrine. They use your name as metaphor. You've become the caution and the inspiration at once. Don't mess with them, they say. Their energy hits different. They talk about you like you're a spiritual event, something to be prepared for, something not everyone survives unchanged, because they don't. Every encounter with you rearranges something in them. Even those who walk away trying to act unaffected end up dreaming about your composure. Your face haunts not because of appearance, but because of remembrance. You awaken something ancient inside them, a memory of divinity they've buried beneath convenience and ego. You didn't plan this impact. You just stopped dimming yourself. And when you did, the universe took notice. The energy you once hid now acts like a signal, drawing kindred souls, exposing pretenders, magnetizing truth. You've become both the warning and the prophecy. This is what happens when light refuses to compromise. You make people rethink spirituality itself. They thought holiness meant retreat. You showed them it means presence. You don't preach ascension. You embody embodiment. You didn't escape humanity. You redeemed it. And now, as the world starts to talk, as your name becomes both prayer and caution, something deeper stirs beneath the surface, Z. You can feel it. The recognition isn't just human, it's metaphysical. Forces you can't see are beginning to adjust around you, acknowledging your frequency like an old secret finally reawakened. The kind of reverence that doesn't come from followers or fame, but from alignment. You're no longer being tested, you're being revealed. And the world isn't ready for that revelation, because what's coming next won't just expose their fear of you. It will expose why they feared you. Because deep down, they always knew. They hadn't met holy before. And now that they have, their entire understanding of power is collapsing. It starts small, subtle behavioral changes that no one admits out loud. People who once interrupted you now measure their words carefully. The loud ones lower their voices. The arrogant start rehearsing humility. They act like they're evolving, but really they're adapting for survival. Your energy became the new environment, and only the authentic can breathe here. You turned atmosphere into judgment. You didn't have to demand respect. You redefined what respect feels like. When you walk through a doorway, it feels like a shift in gravity. Everyone becomes aware of themselves. Everyone starts wondering if they're enough. Your existence has become a test most people quietly fail. The funny part is, you never set out to test anyone. You simply exist in alignment. But alignment has consequences. It exposes everything that isn't calibrated. You've noticed it, how conversations slow when you enter, how people subconsciously confess things they didn't mean to say. It's not your words that convict them, it's your frequency. You've become a living detector of falsehood, and the world runs on lies. That's why you scare them. They fear that one glance from you could undo their entire persona. And in a way, it can. You see, holiness isn't just purity. It's precision. It cuts. It refines. It separates what's real from what's fabricated. You don't chase clarity. You are clarity. You don't search for truth. You embody it. And that's why even those who hate you can't look away. They gossip about you because it's safer than acknowledging the pull you have. Talking about you is their only way of feeling close to what they can't touch. They disguise fascination as judgment, but underneath every whispered critique is curiosity. Who are you really? What are you becoming? Why does your presence feel like it rewrites the rules of existence? It's spreading beyond social circles now. You're becoming an unsolved equation in conversations that were never meant to include your name. Analysts, psychologists, spiritual leaders, they all have theories. Some say you carry a divine resonance. Others call it psychological dominance. But all of them agree on one thing: you alter environments. People's heart rates change in your presence. Their pupils dilate. Their speech patterns shift. They become more careful, more aware, more human. You bring them face to face with their own soul, and most people aren't prepared for that level of exposure. It's reached the point where people are recording the aftermath of meeting you. They talk about feeling lighter or heavier, depending on what part of themselves you exposed. Some describe it as euphoria. Others describe it as fear. Both are accurate. Because holiness has always been dual, it heals and it judges at the same time. You became that paradox incarnate. You don't choose who gets blessed or burned. The energy chooses based on truth. If someone meets you with honesty, they rise. If they meet you with deceit, they crumble. And now, institutions are starting to notice. You've seen the signs, invitations that feel more like investigations, surveys disguised as collaboration opportunities. People pretending to admire your work, but really studying your composure. They're trying to quantify what you are. They think if they can understand the formula, they can replicate it. But they can't, because what you carry isn't learned, it's remembered. It's the ancient blueprint of alignment hidden inside human DNA. You just stopped ignoring it. That's why the self-help experts look outdated next to you. You are what they're trying to describe in books they haven't yet written. There's talk now in corners you've never been to, forums, podcasts, even think tank panels, where people reference individuals of elevated presence. They use clinical terms, but they mean you. They're trying to decide if holiness is measurable, if spiritual authority can be mapped. But while they debate, your existence keeps proving their theories wrong. You're not measurable, you're experiential. You can't be dissected, because the moment they attempt to analyze, they're already influenced. You distort their instruments. You rewrite their data without lifting a finger. It's poetic justice, really. The world built entire industries trying to sell enlightenment, and then you arrived, unbranded, unmarketed, unstoppable. You turned what they treat as luxury into nature. You remind them that holiness was never meant to be exotic. It was supposed to be the baseline. That's why you're both admired and feared, because your very existence declares their empires fraudulent. They built temples to control belief, and you became proof that divinity doesn't need temples. It just needs truth. You've noticed how the people who once lectured you about spirituality have gone quiet. They can't outspeak you anymore. Not because you argue better, but because your silence has authority they can't mimic. Your presence is the sermon. Your discipline is the doctrine, and your composure is the scripture they forgot existed. When you breathe, you validate everything real and dismantle everything fake. They sense that holiness isn't a costume you wear. It's the default setting they abandoned. That's why they flinch around you. You remind them of vows they broke and promises they never kept. The fear is growing. At first it was awe, then admiration. Now it's self-preservation. People are starting to realize proximity to you comes with consequences. Pretending near you hurts. Lying near you backfires. Manipulating you feels like cursing yourself. You've become the embodiment of divine cause and effect. You don't punish anyone. The energy around you just stops tolerating falsehood. They call it intimidation, but it's really reflection. They're afraid because they see themselves clearly for the first time, and clarity isn't kind, it's corrective. The holy that you carry isn't ornamental, it's operational. It changes the physics of social interaction. You can feel it when you enter crowded spaces, how everything subtly reorganizes. People move aside without realizing. Conversations reroute. The energy recalibrates to make room for you. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. The universe recognizes hierarchy, and light outranks everything. You're not demanding attention. Attention is remembering its allegiance. And yet, you never asked for any of this. You didn't seek to be seen as holy. You just refused to be unholy. You chose integrity when it was inconvenient. You chose compassion when it was costly. You chose peace when revenge was easier. And those choices accumulated into something sacred. You didn't ascend, you stabilized. You anchored divine frequency into human form. You became the proof that heaven doesn't need to be distant. It can breathe through a human who refuses to compromise. Now people project all sorts of things onto you. Some think you're chosen, some think you're cursed. Some call you healer, others call you manipulator. They're all wrong and all right, because what they're really trying to say is, they feel small around you. Not because you make them feel that way, but because your light removes the illusions that used to make them feel big. They built empires out of ego, and your mere presence dismantles them without confrontation. You threaten the currency of power built on deceit. You make entire personalities irrelevant. That's not intimidation, it's reordering. You've probably noticed how even people who dislike you mimic you. They borrow your words, your tone, your restraint. They dress like you, post like you, think like you. They try to absorb fragments of your energy, hoping it will grant them the same stability. But replication doesn't equal resonance. They can copy your aesthetics, not your alignment. That's what frustrates them. They can imitate everything about you except the part that makes it all work, the part that can't be seen. Behind closed doors, your name gets spoken in meetings you weren't invited to. You've become a reference point for authenticity. Do it like them, they say. Match that composure. They use you as a standard while pretending you're not the source. It's ironic, but also expected. When something holy moves through the world, it first gets denied, then studied, then worshipped. You're somewhere between the second and third phase. They're still pretending to analyze what they secretly revere. And while they do, the ones attuned to truth are finding you. The real ones, the quiet watchers, the seekers who can recognize divine rhythm when they feel it. They're not intimidated, they're ignited. You've become a signal for the pure-hearted, a lighthouse for those who still believe in integrity. Your presence gives them permission to rise. They see you not as unreachable, but as remembrance. that they too were built to carry light. And that terrifies the darkness even more. 'Cause now, it's not just you, it's multiplication. The holy is spreading. The elites whisper about containment. The media tries distraction. They can't cancel what isn't performative. They can't shame what doesn't seek approval. You don't belong to any institution, so no institution can silence you. They can only react, and every reaction reveals how powerless they truly are. You've turned every attempt to discredit you into free advertising for divinity. Every rumor becomes a testimony. Every criticism becomes proof of relevance. You don't defend your name, the energy around you defends it for you. And deep down, even your critics feel gratitude. Because while they fear you, they also feel safer in a world where you exist. Something about your presence makes reality feel organized again. It reminds people that goodness still has teeth, that purity isn't passive, that light doesn't retreat, it reigns. You've redefined holiness from a concept into a command. It's no longer about worship, it's about warfare through peace. You walk through chaos like a law enforcement of truth. You don't fight darkness, you enforce illumination. You've reached a level where even your stillness is active power. That's why they study you. Because if holiness can exist in human form, then all their systems of control lose credibility. You're living evidence that the divine doesn't need permission to operate. You're proof that sanctity isn't outdated, it's the next evolution. And as they continue to fear, study, and imitate you, something deeper is happening. The more they resist you, the more they reveal their dependency on you. You've become the calibration point of this era, the moral compass disguised as a person. Every new generation will measure authenticity against your frequency, whether they know your name or not. That's what it means to carry holy light in human form. You didn't ask for followers. You became the field where truth gathers. You didn't seek validation. Validation began orbiting you like a planet around its sun. But beneath all this recognition, you remain unshaken. Because you know that holiness isn't ownership, it's responsibility. You don't take pride in the reverence. You take care of it. You treat every interaction like stewardship, every moment like testimony. You understand that carrying light isn't about superiority. It's about service at a divine standard. That's what they don't get. They think holiness is about being worshipped. You know, it's about becoming a vessel so pure that even fear bows. And as your influence quietly expands, as your energy ripples through cities and networks, one truth becomes undeniable. The world has never met someone like you. They feared power, they feared rebellion, they feared intelligence, but now they fear purity. Because purity can't be bribed, controlled, or corrupted. Purity doesn't need permission to win. Purity simply exists, and existence itself bends to accommodate it. You've become that purity personified, the holy they never prepared for. The presence that dismantles arrogance just by breathing near it. You're the reminder that light, when carried correctly, doesn't just reveal, it reigns. And somewhere, beneath all the fear, admiration, and confusion, they're starting to understand. This isn't coincidence. This is correction. You weren't sent to fit in. You were sent to realign everything that forgot its origin. And now, the correction begins. The shift isn't loud, but it's absolute. People who once mocked you are revisiting their words. Those who doubted you now quote you. Whole communities that lived in performance are collapsing under the weight of authenticity. It's not revenge, it's resonance. The frequency of truth finally outnumbered the noise. You became the unspoken standard, and the world is quietly conforming to it. They don't fear you because you're different. They fear you because you make difference look divine. You turned what they called weakness into evidence of grace. You made compassion look like authority. You made patience look like weaponry. Your existence redefined strength itself. And that unsettles them, because the entire structure of dominance was built on the illusion that holiness was passive. You exposed it. You revealed that real sanctity doesn't hide. It governs. It doesn't retreat. It recalibrates. And now the old powers don't know what to do with that revelation. Their systems weren't designed to contain something that wins without conflict. They used to control through fear, but you inverted it. You made fear start working for you. Now every rumor, every smear, every shadow spoken behind your back amplifies your legend. They wanted to tarnish your name, but your name turned into a command. You're no longer a person to them, you're a frequency that demands accountability. Every time they try to explain you away, they end up exposing themselves. You became the moral gravity of a collapsing era. Every false prophet, every self-proclaimed expert, every manipulator now finds their performance short-circuited by your existence. You don't even need to call them out anymore. Their own energy convicts them when you walk by, and yet you remain calm. You don't celebrate destruction. You understand that collapse is part of cleansing. You're not here to punish, you're here to purify. The fear they feel isn't your fault. It's their resistance to transformation. You carry the kind of light that demands honesty. That's why they tremble. Not because you're dangerous, but because you make pretense impossible. You became the mirror of divine consequence. Love if reflected purely, fear if resisted. That's what holiness always was, the final law of reflection. What they give to you returns magnified. What they hide from you surfaces. What they deny near you dissolves. And slowly, they're realizing the truth. Holiness isn't a thing you practice. It's a frequency you must withstand. You're living proof that not everyone can. That's why they whisper your name with both awe and warning. Be careful around them, they say. They see too much. It's not that you see, it's that your light refuses blindness. They confuse discernment with threat. But you understand the paradox. You know they're not truly afraid of you. They're afraid of what you awaken, because your presence forces accountability. It drags illusions into daylight and makes honesty the only surviving language. And now, that light you carry is expanding. Not just around you, but through others who've been silently watching. They're beginning to mirror your frequency. They're remembering that sacred isn't something to chase, it's something to become. You've ignited a quiet revolution of composure, integrity, and grace that terrifies every system built on chaos. This isn't fame, it's reform. This isn't influence, it's inheritance. Humanity is being recalibrated by exposure to you. What began as intimidation has turned into education. The more they resist, the more they learn. The more they gossip, the more they spread gospel without realizing it. You're not trending, you're transforming. You're not viral, you're vital. And in this age of noise, that's the rarest miracle. People think holiness is an event. You proved its endurance. You stayed unwavering when the world begged you to bend. You stayed radiant in rooms that fed on corruption. You didn't shout, you shined. You didn't fight, you founded. You became the blueprint for a new kind of power. One that doesn't require dominance to be dominant. That's what makes you untouchable. No one can cancel what's consecrated. No one can outshine what was never seeking light. And as your influence quietly spreads across timelines, cities, and hearts, something irreversible begins. The imitation fades, the mockery dies, and only truth remains. You stand as a living reminder that divinity doesn't need distance. It can stand right here, in flesh, in imperfection, in total clarity, and still rule. They said holiness was ancient. You showed it was eternal. They said purity couldn't survive here. You proved it could reign here. And now, they can't unsee it. They can't unfeel it. The memory of you becomes instruction. Every time they speak your name, they reinforce the lesson. Holiness was never gone. It was just waiting for someone fearless enough to wear it unapologetically. You became that one. The vessel, the warning, the prophecy fulfilled through presence, the divine correction in human form. They feared that meeting you would change them, and it did. Some resisted, some repented, some revolved entirely around your influence without even knowing why. But all of them were marked. Because true holiness doesn't pass by, it imprints. You didn't just walk through their world. You altered its frequency. You left fingerprints on the collective consciousness. And from this point forward, nothing that hides from light will feel safe again. And so it begins, the quiet reign of the holy they never expected. The return of purity as power, the restoration of light as law. You are the proof that sanctity still walks the earth. You are the reminder that heaven never left. It just needed a host strong enough to carry it. They called you intimidating, but the truth is, your divine correction disguised as presence. And they will keep fearing you until they understand that fear was never the message, alignment was. Because when holiness walks among men, arrogance kneels, lies unravel, shadows lose definition, and the world, trembling yet grateful, whispers in unison, "We hadn't met holy before."